our present, who will update us. What are the latest research results, strategies, contemporary approaches to global citizenship education, and guide us how we can join initiations and communities who work in the same field we do. In every crisis situation, such as the increasing climate change, the protracted pandemic, COVID-19, and now the devastated war just over the border, there is increased tension, aggression, discrimination, fake news, propaganda, and it is a challenge for everyone in these days when we are afraid that abnormality prevails over normality. To continue to treat values such as human rights, critical thinking, sustainability, and peace without compromise and doubt. If someone works in the field of global citizenship education, whether in the formal or non-formal education sector, at university, secondary, or primary school level, these universal values are embedded in the educational practice on a daily basis, and we can only hope that new generations will discover the opportunities wider than us, building a more open, inclusive, peaceful, sustainable, innovative, and just world with the help of the competencies, skills, knowledge gained throughout the lifelong learning process. In recent times, it has been easy to become faint-hearted, to despair, and to doubt the effectiveness of global citizenship education, sometimes education in general. But I believe we are not different from our students and learners. We need the same what we promote and apply among them, and it's empowerment. When we feel ourselves resourceless and helpless, we need to develop stronger networks. We need to share even more good practices. We need to invent new solutions. I hope this event will provide you the perfect space to exchange thoughts, methods, contacts, and by the end of the day, we will be stronger in our hearts and in our minds. This would be already a small victory for common sense. So I wish you a very fruitful and enjoyable conference, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for your thoughts and the opening. I'm sorry to interrupt it with the signal of recording. And now I would like to ask Rika, my colleague, to give a short presentation about the context of the conference and about these projects, what we are going to hear about in the first part.
Thank you, and I'm going to share my screen. It should be okay now, even the view. Is it okay?
It's still not that view, so not the screening version.
But why so? I can see it like that. It's still small because I can see it full, so that's why I cannot tell you what you can see.
It's small, but it's okay.
Yeah,
it's
you
small,
can go ahead like this.
Trying to do something. Is it better now, or is it the same?
It's the same.
Anyway,
but it will be
yeah, it will be okay. All right, no problem. So welcome everyone. We are really happy to welcome these many people from really all around Europe, and according to the registration form, basically all around the world. I'm not sure that all registered could make or can and will make the event, but at the same time, yeah, as Viktória said, this is really empowering to see so many people from so many countries. I will give you a kind of background information and overall an overview of the kind of initiatives HAND has, and basically this conference and whatever will be introduced during the conference, that is the kind of result of these initiatives. Just very quickly to introduce HAND. HAND is the Hungarian Association of NGOs for Development and Humanitarian Aid. It's an umbrella organization. Currently, we have 16 members. It's almost 20 years old, so it was founded in 2003. And basically, our members deal with either international development cooperation and humanitarian assistance activities, so they work in the field, or back at home in Hungary, or in Europe. They are active in the fields of global citizenship education, education for sustainable development, environmental education, you name it. Some of them are active in both fields. Of course, today's conference is related to the second stream of work of HAND. And the activities, what we do basically as an umbrella organization, we are very much involved and engaged in advocacy towards basically the national authorities, but also towards European institutions, of course, awareness raising and capacity building of our members and the NGOs as a sector, as a whole sector. Today's initiatives, these were basically research projects, what we are going to talk about today, and they are really linked to both advocacy and awareness raising, because our ultimate goal is to have some kind of pool of information and that type of research-based results, which we can communicate towards decision makers, policy makers, or institutional leaders. So in that sense, we are, of course, raising the awareness around either global education or international development cooperation, but at the same time using those results which we create during our awareness raising and, for example, research activities, we'd like to communicate those results towards specific target groups in advocacy, mainly towards decision makers and policy makers. The first, because we are talking about today two initiatives of HAND, two projects. The first one was named Teachers as Change Agents for Sustainable Development. It was supported by the International Visegrad Fund, and we had partners from all Visegrad countries, from Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, and of course Hungary. You can see the name of our partners here, and they are going to present their research results in the coming session of the conference. Basically, the research question, what we came up jointly was that what factors facilitate or hinder the mainstreaming of the perspectives and the various topics and themes of global education in pre-service teacher training in the V4 countries. Of course, this question was tweaked according to the national context, but basically that was the main question what we had in mind when we started this project. We used a couple of research methods, of course, desk research and questionnaire surveys in some of the countries, not all of them, but basically the most innovative methodology what we used, it was participative systems mapping, which most probably you're going to learn a bit more about today.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Reka, but we can't see that you changed the slides.
Oh, I really have no idea what the problem could be. So these are the slides I've been already going through, but somehow you could not see. So the research question, the partners. Oh, it's not easy. Yeah, research methods, and yeah, the participative system mapping, what we applied as a methodology. So it's a kind of participatory research. It's a modeling methodology. Basically, a group of stakeholders whom we invited to participate jointly, collaboratively develop a causal map or a causal diagram. And basically, the diagram represents what those stakeholders participating believe to be the causal structure of the system in question. Of course, the system was global education in pre-service teacher training in our case, but it can be anything. Of course, the diagram, the map or the structure, it won't be perfect. It's basically just a qualitative research methodology at best, and it's absolutely not intended to represent any kind of objective truth of the system or the question at hand, but basically still you can very quickly, easily, and in, I think, a fun way, you can somehow assess how people think about the question. The result can be as such, like a causal diagram, like this one. It's basically one of the diagrams the Hungarian groups created during this project. We have created a dedicated project website for sharing the results of this research project. You can find it teachers4sd.org. So you can check it out. All the national level reports you can find there in national languages. Those are, more elaborate and with more details. But at the same time, we've created an English summary as well. So you can read that too. Based on this project, we decided to continue because we found this methodology and even the results inspiring enough to go on with this activity. And we have another project now going on. This conference is part of that. It's called Teachers as Change Agents Continued, but now it's supported, basically co-funded by the Council of Europe and the European Union. It's basically the project of the Council of Europe, and we are in contact with the North-South Center as basically the implementer of that big, huge project we are also part of. This project, it's a three-part project. We have a research cooperation with universities. It's basically only in Hungary. It's taking place only in Hungary, so it's not an international project anymore. We have cooperated with Eötvös Loránd University and University of Pécs, and my colleague Zsuzsa Huszár will introduce that activity. But at the same time, we decided to establish a global education multi-stakeholder working group. Finally, we have come up, at least in Hungarian, it's global education, global citizenship education. So it started its work, and hopefully for the long term, we can work with these people, with this group of people as a specific professional working group. And of course, we have this international conference today. Basically, that's what I wanted to tell during this session. I'm going to talk about the Hungarian research a bit more in detail later on. So thank you for your attention, and I'm really sorry that I could not handle this technical problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Rika. And that's right, it was about the framework and the context of the research, what we are going to disseminate right now. Firstly, I would like to ask Lenka Pankova, the director of ARPOC, the Czech association, to share their results and then to show the presentation and the dissemination of their research project.
Good morning, everybody. Just tackling with some technical issues as well. So hopefully it will work. Just a few minutes.
Okay.
Do you see the?
Yes.
Yes. Only one slide. No notes, no comments. And do you see the movement of it?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
you don't see my notes.
No.
Okay, perfect. Well, so we can start now. I'm a bit nervous about the technical issues, and I hope that it will be fine. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lenka Pankova, and I work in the educational organization called ARPOC. ARPOC is dedicated to global development education in the Czech Republic, and we help teachers with how to work with global issues across subjects. We are a small organization, only 6 employees, and we operate in the Olomouc region. We work mainly with primary and secondary school teachers, preparing methodological materials, seminars, and we implement educational programs for pupils. We somehow cooperate with the local university, Palacký University in Olomouc, and we, with cooperation, in cooperation with a couple of lecturers at the university, we do teaching inputs for future teachers on how to work with global issues in their teaching. And thanks to the project, we have reached the needs of individual teachers and lecturers, and we hope that we will be able to based on the results and create further steps to integrate global issues into school teaching and to support future teachers at the universities. Just a short information how the situation about global education in the Czech Republic is. In the Czech Republic, we use the term global development education. In other countries, you can use global citizenship education, global education, etc. But we have GDE. For the purposes of the research, we used teaching global issues. And what is important to mention is that GDE is not an official part of the educational curriculum, but we can find the topics in several educational areas and so-called cross-cutting issues in the framework given by Ministry of Education. Currently, the new national strategy for the education policy 2030 plus is starting to be implemented, and also the work on the revisions should start in the coming months. So we will see if global development education will be part of the official curriculum or not. What is important also to say is that there is a strong role of NGOs in the development of GDE in the country, and I suppose that it's the same in other Visegrad countries as here in the Czech Republic. As a part of the Teachers Exchange Agents for Sustainable Development project, we conducted small-scale research on global issues in teaching of future teachers. And due to the pandemic that was taking place, we decided to invite teachers only from Palacký University Olomouc and teachers from Olomouc's primary and secondary schools to participate in the research, and also the students from the Palacký University. So it is like a small-scale regional research, but when we shared our results within other universities, lecturers from other universities, we have to say that they have similar feelings and similar experience as we realized. So what we found out that there is a need to link theory with practice as much as possible. For example, even during studies at university, students should train development of concrete lessons and receive adequate feedback from teachers who has his or her own experience of teaching in primary or secondary schools. Sometimes it happens that the lecturers at university has not their own experience from teaching in, let's say, normal school. So it's not like okay situation for the students that they do not have the adequate feedback from for their efforts. And what is very important is that students in higher education should experience models of teaching global issues even in their secondary schools and or at universities, so they can learn by imitation. They should know how it should look like. And if they do not see it, and if they do not experience it, it's very hard for them to do it. In order for global themes to become an effective and inspiring part of education, university lecturers should be inspiring and motivated in the first place. And it's very difficult to inspire, be motivated, to have all the knowledge and all the know all the methods and so on. So we found out that it should be good, and it is used that the lecturers should collaborate with experts. For example, invite them for practical seminars and create a space for sharing good practice and mutual support for educators themselves across disciplines, workplaces, and educational levels. And in order to allow sharing and mutual support, it's recommended to support a friendly atmosphere and open communication between colleagues within departments, as well as between departments and the faculties. As you probably have also similar experience, that the communication is really the key of any success. Another aspect is the link between mandatory school practices and global themes. And this should consist in improved two-way communication between schools and nurturing the quality of teaching practices by adapting their assignments. So it should be something like compulsory that global issues should be part of the practices at schools for students. And it would be desirable to influence the society perception of global themes with an emphasis on teacher training students. And it's important social life personalities who would show the significance of global themes and set positive trends associated to these issues in society as a whole. So it would be nice to see that global issues are all around us, and even we know it, but we should behave according to it. And as I said, the communication is the alpha and omega of any success. So and it's no difference here. So we consider communication between colleagues in the workplace, teachers or lecturers in higher education, within departments or across departments to be absolutely key. And it's important that teachers receive information, and not just the information about global issues in different subjects at university, so that the global issues are taught cross-curricularly. What we also observed is that there are islands of positive deviance in both primary and secondary schools and universities who consider global issues important and are committed to them. And they really have a strong effort to support teaching global issues. And last.
I'm sorry, Daniela. Would you please mute? Thank you. Lenka, it's 2 minutes now.
Yes, and last point is that it is really challenging to kick for global issues alone. So it's really good to look for allies and to see that you are not the only alien in your workplace. There are always another aliens all around. So we should look for them and make connections with them and teach and support global issues together. So thank you for the attention. And there is my contact. If you need, if you want to ask for anything, feel free. Or maybe there will be space for us for questions afterwards. And the presentation will be sent by hand from you, so to you, so you will get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lenka. Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, I'd like to ask the Hungarian team, Zsuzsanna Huszár from the University of Pécs and Réka to share their results and findings. on the research.
Okay, and I will be the one, I think, starting it. I'm really afraid now of the technical problem. So again, I would like to share my and I've tried to fix within PowerPoint the problem. What can you see now?
It's the same, but you can see. It's not the screen.
I absolutely don't have any idea. And this way, same.
Mm-hmm.
Pireka, if you share the whole screen, not just the presentation screen.
Mm-hmm. I've never had any such kind of issue, so whatever I knew about it. Screen. This
Now
way?
it's okay.
Now it's okay. Oh. Research in Hungary. Just very quickly, during the first project, basically in Hungary, we did desk research, mainly focusing on the training and outcome requirements of Hungarian teacher education and teacher training. And we had a student survey as well, targeted at students studying at universities and being teacher trainee students. And of course, we have carried out that participatory systems mapping process as well. Going through the kind of ministerial decrees which are relevant in our case, it was visible that certain topics, aspects, competencies related to global education or even education for sustainable development, these are included in the decrees to a varying degree. It's important also to mention that the ministerial decrees which we examined, basically they were valid up to the end of last year. So from January on this year, basically the decree has changed. So in that sense, whatever I'm going to say or tell about them, that was valid only up until the end of last year. We cannot see that these kind of elements add up to being kind of horizontal principle or content, for sure, that's for sure. Hopefully that can change in the future. And of course, being included in these ministerial decrees, that doesn't ensure that basically these aspects and competencies, they feature in the actual teacher training process at universities. Certain aspects also are completely missing, like gender equality or the ethical, legal, or ecological issues of contraception. Migration is also not there per se. So in that sense, of course, there is really big room for improvement. As I told you, we have carried out a student survey. More than 300 students from 4 universities from Hungary participated. And basically it was the repetition or we have used the questionnaire what was used during a previous research in 2012. So some questions were added and even edited compared to the previous survey, but at the same time, it's basically a comparative study in a sense as well. What we could see that the perception of students of their own awareness did not change statistically significantly. So after 9 years, they have the kind of same perception of their own knowledge about global issues. So we used 26 global issues, and 19 were judged almost the same. In 6 cases, the numbers, they decreased and so deteriorated. And in 3 cases of migration, epidemic diseases, and critical media consumption, basically the awareness increased it's very obvious that the kind of international context had a profound impact on the students' perception of their own awareness related to these topics. What was, again, very important, that the kind of perception of global problems, it was a kind of scale from being very absolutely not active, but perceiving the global problems, up to the point where someone is very much involved in social activism. It was very visible that kids or students are much more towards that end of the scale, that they perceive the global problems, but not that much actively participate in alleviation actions. That's also the kind of saying that 60% of students say that they encounter global issues and perspectives during their university education, only occasionally or once in a while. Definitely a very limited number consider that global issues are a systemic element of their teacher training. As for methodology, it's obvious that it's visible from the statistics that students know effective teaching methods, but at the same time they are unfamiliar with newer ones or quite useful ones, in a sense. That is also obvious that those who addressed global topics, for example, in their essay or presentation, they usually more frequently encounter global topics or perspectives featuring in their education. So there's a kind of link here for sure. During the participatory systems mapping sessions, we had 3 groups creating as an end result 3 diagrams. I'm not going to introduce them in a more detailed manner, but this is a kind of output what the groups created. This is another one. The main findings which you can kind of draw as a conclusion from the diagrams, and basically the process itself is such that when the groups create the diagrams, the last section of the program is to interpret the diagram. So even that's why also it's a kind of participatory process, that those who participate in it, the stakeholders, they also kind of interpret it, and if they feel fit, then they can also outline recommendations and conclusions based on the diagrams. So one of the main findings was that there is absolutely a kind of need for system thinking, if you will, a kind of strategic approach, whatever you'd like to do and reform in the education system. It was very visible that it was a kind of aha moment for the participants, that yes, you cannot really examine factor by factor the things, or factors alone in themselves. It creates really a whole system to influence something. So it was kind of eye-opening experience for the participants. From almost all the diagrams, it was visible that motivation is a very important factor, both for the university lecturers who teach the future teachers, but of course for the future teachers, the trainees, the students as well. It was very interesting that only the student group, because we had a student group, made difference between the motivation of students and lecturers, because that could be a kind of different thing. Of course, it's a kind of very important and desirable outcome as well, because if you have motivated lecturers and students, then of course you can change a lot in the system. The other very important, topic which came up during the discussion was the whole university approach. Even if the diagram was not around the whole university approach, it was visible that in other diagrams as well, all the factors which could be, prerequisites for the whole university approach, they were there. So it's very obvious that the participants feel that the approach or the commitment of the whole university and of its stakeholders and actors. It's very important in the system. Another very interesting outcome
you have
was
4 minutes left.
Okay, all right. Government policy and decision making is absolutely not seen in the systems as very easily influenceable factors. So in that sense, the participants felt that they have more control over the, the factors within the university and not really at the level of policy and decision making. Of course, pedagogical freedom within universities and even in schools, it was a very important topic, and the kind of reality shock future teachers face when they start teaching, and how that influences whatever they have learned during their education. And an important thing that only students saw students as influential actors to bring about change. So that is also kind of saying, phenomenon within the mapping process. And of course, domestic international cross-sector cooperation was always stressed, that it is very important to learn from each other, to share new perspectives and best practices. And of course, more research is needed to really understand the question at hand. Yes, and that was it. And over to you now, Zsuzsa. I hope she's not going to have any technical issue.
Zsuzsa?
Yes, I'm okay. Good morning. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint.
Is it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be fine. Yeah.
Rika said that in Hungary is a problem, some kind of passivism. It is an important point to act, to be proactive, to be more proactive. In our research, we set out to examine the perspective of global education in teacher training in Hungary, involving stakeholders, and our students from University of Budapest ELTE and from Pécs moderated 3 small groups.
I'm sorry, Zsuzsa. I'm afraid you have the same problem what Rika had. So if you change slides, we cannot see that now.
Oh. Stop share. I will try again. May I leave and come back? Valamikor azt használ, hogy kilépek és újra visszajövök. Neked mi használ?
Nekem azt használt, hogy nem a PowerPoint programot osztottam meg, hanem a screen-t, tehát hogy amit te látsz. Amikor megosztod, hogy share, akkor nem most szerintem jó.
Most jó. Most jó.
Thank you. Most viszont nem akar lépni. There are 3 causal diagrams were made in our research, moderated by our students. There are similarities and difference in these 2, and we have no time to see more details. But the central factors of the 3 groups, the degree of practice orientation, cultural diversity, and restructuring of subject in teacher training And from these causal diagrams, we can see drivers, mixed factors, and vulnerable factors too. Drivers, these factors have many outbound relationship, mixed factors which have both inbound and outbound connections, and vulnerable factors which have many inbound relationship. So the most important drivers, legal framework, management support, financial support, preparation of teachers, monitoring and adapting good practices, and success of sensitization programs. Mixed factors are modern, relevant educational goals. The exemplary role of teacher training institution and teachers' level of preparation in methodologies. And vulnerable factors, establishing a common vision, teacher capacity, time spent on global education, and motivation and openness, like and attitudes. I try to summarize our proposals based on the lesson learned from the diagrams generated as a result of the system mapping exercise. Proposals can be made in following areas. The teacher training dimension of global education is partly a policy issue, and some elements of it need to be reflected in the output requirements, training programs, and outcomes objectives. Institutional development of teacher training programs should include aspects and relevant content of global education and should be supported by the management. There is a need for methodological modernization of teacher training in higher education pedagogy in general, and in the context of global education as well. It would be important to put more emphasis on practice-oriented education in teacher training and to promote diversity of field experience, funding sources to expand practical training opportunities. And it is important to keep abreast of international and national good practices in global education and to adapt some of these good practices to teacher training. In the end, we propose to further develop cooperation and partnership networks in the field of global education, both at national and international levels. Rising awareness of global issues is in different sections of society can also contribute to raising awareness of teacher education. Teacher openness is a qualitative factor in performance assessment is maybe important to, on my opinion, are students and teachers. The project was designed as a learning process. From a learning methodology point of view, our students were involved in a process that combined elements of project learning, inquiry-based learning, experiential learning, reflective learning, learning by doing, cooperative group work, facilitating in pairs, and collective writing too. The skills that can be developed through their involvement in the project include flexible, practical, and system thinking, the ability to change perspectives, persuasive communication, reasoning and information sharing, cooperation and organization skills, consensual decision making, result orientation, and individual responsibility. So global education in our interpretation now, global education as we understand it is an educational approach and practice that places the learning in a global context, applying the concept of holism, addresses world phenomena that affect all of our lives in a problem-oriented way, and in doing so emphasize opportunities for active and responsible individual and social action, conveys values and focuses on the development of competencies and promotes the construction of knowledge that address all three fundamental dimensions of sustainability, ecological, social, and economic, and interpret them is conjunction with the other. Global education provides individual and social experiences and a conceptual framework to understand and put into practice the principles: think globally, act locally, and be yourself. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Zsuzsa. Now I open the place for the audience. I'm sorry, to raise your questions. We have 10 minutes for it, so go ahead. You can raise your hand or signal it if you have questions to both presentations, both to Lenka and to the Hungarian team.
Meanwhile, while you're thinking of any comment or question, I'd like to share with you a Miro board, which I've prepared, and basically of this PowerPoint technical problem I kind of forgot to mention. There's one section in it where you can find information for all the conference participants. There's another section in it which is relevant for workshop 3, but at the same time, still, if you go there, I'm sending you in the chat the link. And hopefully you can access it without any problem. There you can find the conference program. The Norsa Center has requested us to share with you some information and documents. And even we've joined the V4 recommendation during the first project, which we are going to introduce today now. So you can check out those information. And previously also we have kind of used this opportunity of getting together to learn about inspiring books, teaching materials, studies, films, website, which could be, good to share with others. And if you're familiar with such kind of collaboratively used boards, then basically it's the same. You click in the sticky notes and you can write anything, most probably without any problem. And there's also a section with sticky notes for any kind of idea you'd like to share. So hopefully you have no problem with joining the board and using the board. But at the same time, it's now your opportunity to ask questions and share thoughts.
Actually, we have problem because it needs a permission to access the Miro board.
Try it now.
All right, it's okay now. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I can see that Monica is raising her hand, so you can go ahead with your question, Monica.
Thank you. My question actually to both presenters, but especially to the Hungarian, if policy could support in any way to engage or to let student teachers or pre-service teachers meet more with global problems. So what policy changes you could imagine in that aspect that would support pre-service teachers to acquire more competencies in global education?
Lenka, would you want to?
Sorry, I had some problems with the voice, so I didn't get the question.
Do you hear me properly?
Yes, but I didn't hear Monica properly.
Yeah, then I will kind of repeat her question.
Yes, or may I? Right now, can you hear me? Probably.
I can hear you.
So
yeah.
And now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So my question was, what kind of policy measures could you envision that would support teachers, pre-or in-service teachers, to get more profound or more developed competencies in teaching or in global education in general?
Actually, in the research, we had in the mind map phase, we had some areas, and our participants decided not to go into the political system issues because they are not able to, to change it easily. So they went to the things that they are able to, the teachers, the lecturers at the universities are able to change. So, and that's, I think that I don't have an answer for your question. And another part is in the Czech Republic, and I think it's also in other Visegrad countries that the universities are really independent. So it's up to each university faculty department what's in the curriculum for students. So I don't know. I think that, for example, in the Czech Republic, it's very important that the global issues are part of the curriculum for schools, like, primary and secondary schools. And if the students from the university see that it's the part of the education, they have to do at schools when they are teachers. So it's something that it should convince them to go for these issues. I don't know if I get the point of the question. If you want to,
yes, I think so. I was expecting something like
okay.
I was expecting something like an answer like this, like being part of the curriculum, or having an agreement between the universities that it's part of the I don't know, for getting the diploma, or that it's a compulsory course to take, or I don't know, because I'm not a university person. This is why it interests me how it seems from the university perspective, what would support this.
I'm not a university person as well, so maybe Reka, you could add something if you had any point for this question.
Yeah, basically, I was the one comparing the kind of results and putting together in the English summary. So I think there are some points, but I'd like to ask Zsuzsa, since she's a university person, she might have, and later I will react on it too. Can't hear you, Zsuzsa.
I think that curriculum of teacher training and key competencies are most important, and legal frameworks to make and describe more details about it.
Yeah, and actually it resonates, whatever is in the English summary, as well as a kind of compilation of all the recommendations from the national research projects. Basically, we kind of promote the idea of preparing or developing strategic documents on global education or on education for sustainable development. And if such documents exist already, then of course it would be good to be updated. If the elements related to global education and sustainability are missing in the old documents. And of course, in that regard, the realization of SDG 4 and specifically the target 4.7, it's very relevant, and it can be a kind of reference point for decision making and policy making. And of course, related to strategic documents, documents of actual implementation, regulation, those ministerial decrees and whatever regulates the kind of output and training requirements of teacher training, those should be adopted and updated in line with the kind of strategic goals set out in the strategic documents. But at the same time, as was visible, and I already mentioned this from the diagrams, basically the participants felt that it's very difficult for them to have a kind of influence over the decision-making processes and policy processes dealing with these kind of strategic documents and implementing and regulating documents. So it's definitely a kind of question in the certain, national contexts, how you can do that actually.
Thank you, Rika. We received a question on chat as well, which is related to this, and which was, what challenges do you face while working with the government in educational policy development? And what differences do you see in comparison to the past years in education sector? And it's for both presentations or both associations.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer this question, as I not work with the directly with the government and the educational policies development. So I'm sorry.
In Hungary, from 1990, there is a rich tradition close connected to or with environmental education and sustainable education, and global education is it's an aspect. Sustainable education is one of the aspects of global education, and it is good tendencies, more rich the theories and practices too, but in higher education, to specific this knowledge and not integrate with disciplines and not connected enough to practice. So from teacher training programs, directly global education maybe is missing. But we have good traditions and practices on it.
Can I also intervene? Basically answering to the question, if you take the example of global education in Hungary, we have a kind of government concept dated from 2016, and actually the process leading up to the development and the approval of that document, it was a kind of multi-stakeholder consultative process. Of course, since, during that 6 years, this government document is valid, and most probably it's still valid. Not much happened in relation to the content of that concept. And actually that type of multi-stakeholder process has ceased to exist after the adoption of the concept paper. So in that sense, the kind of opportunities for engagement and for communication kind of ceased to exist. And that's, I think, a problem. And that's why also we kind of figured that during this project supported by the North-South Center, we kind of also concentrate on reviving this type of multi-stakeholder process by establishing this working group. So hopefully it will contribute to that. However much we are going to have a kind of impact on policy making and decision making, that's to be seen, but at the same time still it's a kind of initiative from our side. And of course, that document is like 6 years old. So again, it's a question whether do we want to, again, revive it? Do we want to concentrate on that document, or we'd like to, focus our attention towards other processes of the government? Again, it's a kind of question, and we need to see it, but at the same time, it's a kind of opportunity that on education for sustainable development, there's a kind of consultative process going on, initiated by the ministry responsible for education and the UNESCO. So in that sense, there are kind of windows of opportunity. We'll see what we can do with it.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the questions as well. One moment.
Miguel raised his hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see. So Miguel.
Thank you very much, Ildi, for giving me the floor. And sorry, I could not find the famous hand to raise. Anyway, first of all, allow me to really warmly congratulate you for the event itself, but especially for this survey, which is central. I think it will be a turning point in reinforcing the capacity development and professional development of educators. I really trust that, and I was very inspired actually also by the hand interpretation of global education. Very, very clear and very practical. I just wanted to actually take the floor to reinforce Reka's point on this multi-stakeholder perspective, and to answer to this question from Rabu Ranit about the challenges working with decision makers. I think this multi-stakeholder perspective is the solution to really create confidence between the different level of actors involved in educational policy, and I think that these working groups that have been created both in Hungary and in Czech Republic, I believe so, because I just say that in the process of relaunching this new strategy in Czech Republic, it is a multi-stakeholder approach. I think this is really the entry point to increase and have a greater impact in the recognition of global education by policymakers. Thank you very much, and again, congratulations for this event.
Thank you very much, Miguel, to adding this and for. Okay, let's move on. I turn to Marta, who is the board member of INOVA from Slovakia. So please have your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. I hope I can be heard. And now I will check if I can be also seen with the presentation. Now you see, I'm afraid that now you can see the other things. Okay, is it okay with the slides and they are moving?
Yes.
Right, yes. Okay. Good. So good morning to everybody. Really, I have to stress that congratulations to this big audience, very varied audience. Greetings from INOVA, which is a member organization of Umbrella, so the Slovak umbrella organization of development NGOs. INOVA was found basically some 25 years ago to sort of bridge the gap in educational programs that were not usually incorporated in our universities at that time. So originally our main issues or topics were environmental policy, European studies, was the protection of cultural heritage and public policy. We have moved away from these, which were international programs, and now we are moving in the area of non-formal education in narrower topics, and global education has been our sort of a tool, let's say, through which we try to work on participation, on active citizenship, on strengthening the civil society as such. So it's not our big topic, but we very much appreciate its possibilities to impact on our other work. And it's it reminds me of the globality of the things. As I mentioned, that our programs were international. We had students also from Ukraine, and just recently some of them started asking, hello academia, how are you? We are trying to come to Slovakia, so we hope that at least this way we can help and reconnect with our past and bridge again to the future. Okay, so my presentation looks at the results of the research, but also I would like to bring the attention to what's happening right now with regard to the creation of the national strategy on global education, and how can the research contribute, or what are the elements that are strengthening maybe the global education in Slovakia right now. I feel they are strengthening, and that will, I think, connect also to the questions that were just now asked about the policy making levels, etc. When speaking about global education in Slovakia, I think we always think of like three main elements, and one is the different topics that compose global education, then the way of teaching, meaning the participatory way, and then the final aim of having global education, that is to change the attitude and to make some things happen. So to result in some practical activities. When we went into the project, the ambition, of course, was to answer the research questions, but also because we knew that the new strategy on global education will be happening, then our aim was also to inform the new strategy, to be around, hopefully, and help. What is the background, or what was the background of our work? Were different documents. As I think also Reka said, that there are, of course, some main national documents guiding the global education. In our case, it was the strategy that unfortunately finished in 2016, and since then everybody was waiting for the new strategy, and for some not really clear reasons that was not happening. But what's important also is that we wanted to trace down where the global education is mentioned in the implementation documents. The implementation documents meaning those that guide and influence the work of the teachers and the work of the directors of schools. Because again, to answer one of the questions in the previous discussion, maybe those who are there really to influence the things are the directors of schools. That also followed out from our discussions in working groups when preparing the strategy, that if they are there to enforce the global education and to expect it from the teachers, then basically this is it. So if we win the directors, we win a lot. Because all the documents, all the guidelines and teacher qualification definitions, they are there. They, to some extent, contain the mentions of global education, usually not in the way that global education, but they stress the values, they stress critical thinking, they stress human rights. So the elements of global education are there. And because the system of qualifications has developed into something that is like a monster, I have a feeling that there are many pages describing what, how should the teachers look like, do, then it becomes very difficult to change it because you have to change a lot of pages, let's say. So in that sense, it really has, it is sensible to have an overarching document that defines the value-based education and that defines the global education as a guiding form of or approach to education. Okay, in the research in Slovakia, of course, we looked at the document and then we looked at the research that was done before and that concerned the introduction of global education in the teacher training at universities. And basically, we find that we confirm what was found out during that research. And we maybe took it one or two steps further. A very important research work was done through the big sort of consortium project financed by the Slovak Aid, and that resulted in the analysis of the state of global education in Slovakia. The analysis had several parts. It looked at the primary and secondary schools. It looked also at universities. It looked also at the non-formal education. And I believe that that is a good starting point for creating the new strategy. The participative research that we did within our Visegrad project was a very interesting experience because of its form. And of course, it had the limitations. We were stuck to the online environment, which at least enabled us to invite for discussions the teachers who would otherwise probably not come for the online meeting, for the personal meetings. We did it in two groups. We had a very mixed group of university teachers, secondary school teachers, people from NGOs, also from the ministry body. And we did over Zoom and Miro, and we ended up having all these beautiful diagrams as you saw as the results. I'm not showing the diagrams. I am here just showing a few elements which came up in our discussions. You will see that they are not new or special inventional. They just work with all the elements and approaches that are very inner to global education. We discussed one I think bigger moment that did not appear maybe at the previous research work was that the universities are all following the financing formula of 60 to 40, which means that 60% is depending on the research work of the people, and just 40% depends on the pedagogical work. This formula makes the university teachers, also the teachers of future teachers, concentrate a lot on research, on the academic work, which leads, of course, to the professional development of the teachers, but it does not stress so much the necessity to work on their pedagogical skills. And this was something identified as an interesting and strong point, where we felt that if this formula was different, at least that the pedagogical faculties that should really concentrate on pedagogical skills, developing of pedagogical skills of the future teachers, but as we have already seen by way of example, of course, the university teachers themselves need to be very skilled to motivate the others and to be role models for the future teachers.
Sorry,
So,
Marta, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. Thank you. So this was one of the important points. And then I jump probably to the last thing, just to give a few words about what's happening now. There is the participatory process on creating the new national strategy. So there were meetings of working groups, which the meetings were led by the Ministry of Education. And the result is now a list of suggestions for priorities, for specific measures, or for principles that should be reflected in the new text. We are waiting now for the draft text, and we will be able to enter it again. An interesting thing is that a curricular reform is happening at the same time, which is trying to use the same principles. We believe it's appeared in the meetings that it is the same principles that should be built in the new system of teaching. So these two processes are happening at the same time. And also an interesting, I hope a positive thing is that the umbrella is implementing a project, EduGlobe, funded by Active Citizenship Fund, that helps it to strengthen the structures of a global education platform within the umbrella, and hopefully influence the process of creating the new strategy, and then also to be able to evaluate its first implementation steps. So in a way, I'm hopeful that the things are happening in the right direction. The change from the past maybe is also in the way that at the ministry, there are now people who come from the NGO world. We will see how long they stay, because it's not an easy environment to work with, but at least right now they are there, and hopefully they are able to bridge these two worlds. I mean, the practice, the teaching world, and the NGO's expertise, and the actual policy making. So, sorry, I again underestimated the time limit of 10 minutes.
It's okay.
Thank you for
much,
your
Marta.
attention.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask Ela to continue from Poland, from Grupa Zagranica. She's the coordinator of global education part. Ela?
Hello, I'm sorry. I'm struggling with the internet connection very much. I'm in and out all the time. So I don't know what was the last sentence from Slovakia, because I was out and running to find some other Wi-Fi connection. But I hope now it's going to be okay. So Poland, well, to be honest, we are in a completely different situation now as, do you hear me?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Hello, do you hear me?
We can hear
okay.
you.
In a completely different situation than we were even discussing about this conference and about the presentation. I will try also to somehow to mention.
Now we can't hear you. Ella, we can't hear you right now.
I think meanwhile she's struggling with her internet
Yeah.
connection. If you have any question to Marta on the Slovak context, feel free to either raise your hand or write it in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Reka.
If I may take the floor, actually I find very interesting what Marta just said at the end of her presentation about representatives of civil society organizations being invited to the Ministry of Education, and this is quite an interesting situation actually that could also increase and improve the relation between practitioners and decision makers.
Yes, hopefully so. The Ministry of Education has taken over this responsibility for global education, basically from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I think they are looking for the ground because, as they said, they did not have the institutional memory about the global education as such. So I think they basically needed to work with other people from the sector to get the input to be able to look at the global education from the larger perspective and be able to put it together. So I hope it will really work this way. And I think also the influence was that they somehow participated in at least I understood it this way, participated in a big national project that tries to teach the state administration to be participative, to open the floor for the participation of stakeholders and to work with them when designing new policies. So this is also a learning process in that sense. And I hope it will work that way. It was very difficult to do it in this online fashion, but at least they tried. So we will see how they incorporated all the inputs into the text. Thanks. I see Ella, so hopefully it will work now.
I'm back. Yes, I hope it's going to work now. So are there questions to Marta or should I continue? Ildi, what's the plan?
I think if there's no questions more to Marta, then you can continue. And afterwards, everyone can have questions to you and to Marta as well, if still there is something.
Okay, so I don't know what you had a chance to hear from myself. So taking into consideration the research and the advocacy process after we got the research results and the recommendations, the world changed again. So now that's not COVID-19, that is, influencing us in this educational sector, but especially, I don't know if especially, but here in Poland, we are now in the discussion, now maybe a deep individual discussions with ourselves about global education and new challenges for global education here in Europe. Today I got some, I have read some statistics. There are over 1,200,000 refugees here in Poland since 11 days. And the situation is like that, you know, all hands are on board. We are now trying to, as a society, because there is no systemic, not too much of the systemic, how to say, assistance and aid, but as a society and also CSOs, we are trying to somehow deal with the situation, especially with people's needs and especially with educational rights and needs that children and young people coming from the war zone, from Ukraine, might need now. So as I already tried to explain to Ildi in my yesterday night email, that not much of the advocacy has been done, but something had been done, and maybe this is also kind of a challenge or a chance for bringing some new perspectives also to global education and higher education, not only here in Poland, but in the world and especially in Europe, especially. So Grupa Zagranica is again an umbrella, a federation. Here you have, I like this visualization from our website. Unfortunately, it's not translated into English, but I thought I would bring it here. We are in the V4, mostly V4, environment. So some people may understand what is written here because some languages are similar. Grupa Zagranica is a platform, an umbrella organization for 57 CSOs, in other words, NGOs, non-governmental organizations working with international development, cooperation, democracy support, humanitarian aid, and global education. And now all our organizations are very much engaged in the in dealing with the situation that we are facing. Do you hear me? Because you are all freezed, which means that I'm free.
You are freezed, but we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, okay, good. So Grupa Zagranica, we work as a 3-people secretariat for all these 57 organizations, and we try to, how to say, put things or make things move forward. And one of these activities was the research that we, and the whole project that we did together with Marta and Lenka and Reka from HUND. So we are going to talk about the research report, but not the research report, but mostly about the, how to say, the outcomes of this research that came out when we talk about teacher education. Global education, teacher education, or how much global education is present in teacher education and teacher development before and now, to be honest. There were just 2 international projects financed by the European Union that were tackling global education in higher, in teacher education and teacher development. So when we talk about future teachers and they're, you know, the students of pedagogy institutions or similar, and this means that there is no systemic, let's say, there is no systemic approach to this, to global education in this area in Poland. These two projects financed by the European Commission were led, of course, by non-governmental organizations. So this was like a grassroots movement, yes, to invite universities to think about global education as an important aspect of education of future teachers. But on the other hand, we somehow gathered, not many people, I know that Poland is a big country, but we gathered a group who took part in this research, and also remembering that the process, that the research process, you already, Reka said, and some other people today, that it was not just the, you know, form to fill in or you know, on Google Docs. Yes, this was something very much participatory and taking time for our participants. So at least we somehow, in this COVID situation and all the mess surrounding the last 2 years, we somehow, gathered some people around this idea. And what we are very much proud of, that there were also people from central institutions like Ministry of Foreign Affairs, mostly taking part in this, in the research process, which gave us the possibility to advocate toward, you know, global education also during the research process, and not only, you know, based on the recommendations. And what are the results of this, what we've discussed here in Poland? So the main results, we divided into 2 groups, and one group is like obstacles for developing global education in teacher training. Yes. And the first and most important one that was mentioned both by the academics and representatives of the ministries is the socio-political climate. Without a positive, let's say, a socio-political climate for global education, we won't be able to introduce global education as a, you know, as a systemic, let's say, or a policy, yes, to higher education, field or area, and I think this might be kind of similar in also some other European countries. And what is mostly important for us, that this socio-political climate was also mentioned by the ministries. Yes, so of course these were not the decision makers, right? But there, I mean, it is somehow acknowledged that global education sometimes is seen as a controversial issue, and teachers and academic teachers as well are somehow afraid to work with this with this topic. Then we also have the small or insufficient activity of the Ministry of Education and Science. It's now called Ministry of Education and Science. in the area and in the field of promoting, developing global education as we would expect it, like the ministry. And according to our research participants, the Ministry of Education and Science should play the most important role in the system of teacher education and in-service teacher training and also formal education, when, of course, in general, but when it comes to global education or introducing like the themes related to global education to the system. Then what we are struggling with is the lack of any systemic solutions regarding the presence of global education in teacher and education standards. We don't have that. We don't have any documents. And here I can interrupt a little bit. 1.5 years ago, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs accepted the multi-annual development cooperation program, and in Poland, global education is the part of development cooperation program and area. In that program, it was there is a plan to create a strategy for developing global education in Poland, so both in formal education like primary, secondary, but also in the higher education system as well, of course, in teacher training and teacher development.
And I have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so we are still waiting for the beginning of the process. It was first delayed because of due to COVID. Now it's delayed due to the political situation we are currently in. So we are still waiting, but we hope that we would be able to work together in the multi-sectorial process on this strategy, right? Then what we have is the lack of structured cooperation between different parts of the system. What we also lack is the interdisciplinary approach between individual faculties, institutes, and fields of study of future teachers. So the universities are also not cooperating with each other, and the academics are not cooperating with, other people, for example, NGO experts in the area. Overloaded core curriculum and global education as non-formal education is not enough academic to be present on higher education institutions and in higher education. So this is something we are struggling with. But there are also some chances. You can read them in the presentation because I don't want to take more time. But here what we have are some main recommendations. Yeah. So of course, creating a strategy for the development of global education. I don't know if we have any participants from Poland here, but this would be interesting to know. So we are still waiting for this, and the current situation, and in somehow incorporating peace education into global education again might be something that that we should all think about. Yes, in for example, creating the declaration of global education for in this process that Jean initiated. Then refreshing and strengthening the cross-sectorial cooperation between public institutions, social actors, academia, and thinking across borders. So academia is not the lonely island in the world, and there are other sectors that they can cooperate with. Of course, global education cannot be treated as controversial and risky. Stronger presence of Ministry of Education and Science in the cross-sectorial group, because we are meeting twice a year in a cross-sectorial group and discussing also this one. and strengthening the academic position of global education. So these are our, let's say, advocacy recommendations, which at the moment are going to be discussed again, because we have some new issues that we should include in our work for global education. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we have 5 minutes for this session. Extra due to technical issues, we are a bit late, but we still have 5 minutes for questions to raise to Ella or Marta. And as I saw, there was one question already in the chat for Slovakia. Yeah. I learned from one of my Tech for Slovakia fellow that the education level in the country is quite high relatively. What can be some of the factors? That's the question from Rabu Ranjit.
Okay, I am just thinking that what is exactly meant by the education level. If we look at like the percentage of people who have at least got the secondary schools, etc. Yes, the general education level is quite high. I think it's because of the past. In the past, we thought we had quite a good compulsory formal education. But when speaking about the education level in the sense of way of teaching right now and the outcomes, that we can judge by looking at, for example, PISA results, there we are not so happy to see the way our children are in comparison with other OECD countries, because there are problems with the basic reading comprehension, as usual thing. Mathematical literacy also goes down. So there I am not very, I think, happy about the education level. So currently we are struggling. In the past it was better. What's the problem? Is the general, I think, system of the not evaluating, but supporting the teachers. The teachers are, I think, still the old generation of teachers is the main part in the system. The new teachers are not very eager to go into the system because of the low pay and low esteem of the teaching profession. So I think we have a lot to do with regard to really working with the teachers as the profession. I don't know if I answered.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Okay. If there are no questions right now, then I would have a coffee break now, just to prepare for the next session. And if you are going to have a question later, you will receive the contacts of the presenters and the colleagues, so you can ask from them directly. And we are going to send you the PPTs and also the summaries of the research reports are going to be in English, and it will be, or they will be, because there are two report summaries on the two projects. So we are going to share them as well. So you will receive that one as well. We will start the next session at 11:10. So please come back for that time. All right. I hope everyone could come back from coffee break. And as you saw on the chat, there was one more question to the last presentations, which I missed to answer or raise. So please, someone answer to it. It was from Raghu Ranjit as well.
I can
thank
give
you.
some kind of answers or indicate certain things which were expressed in the diagrams of our research groups. Again, I'm trying to share my screen, hopefully with better luck than previously. And then I go to the Miro board. You can also go there because it's on the same board. Do you see my screen that I'm in Miro now?
Yes, we see.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I read aloud the question first, right?
Okay.
What can be done to motivate teachers and ensure teachers get paid well then?
All right. So as you can see, you have the frame for the conference board for all, but in workshop 3, we're going to look at some elements of the diagrams we created during the research. And and basically because of this question, I found it relevant to look at a certain section of these diagram parts. For example, the motivation of university lecturers. That's what I'm focusing now on. So most probably you're also seeing that. As you can see, there are quite many factors identified by the people who created this diagram, which could be motivating for example, for university lecturers. And as far as I can see and remember, none of it is kind of financial. For example, extent of compulsory administration. Of course, it can have a kind of other way around. That's why it's negative, the link between the two factors. If it's too much administration, of course, university lecturers cannot be that much motivated. Of course, motivation of students can motivate university lecturers. The lecturer's personal connection to the topic, that's also a factor. Number of small local projects, initiatives, that could also enhance the kind of approach university lecturers have towards global education or education for sustainable development. Number of case studies, best practices shared. The more you learn about these things, of course, the more motivated you could become to deal with these topics. Inspiring extracurricular university environment. Basically, that was raised only again by students and most probably for them, and it's visible, the link is established between this inspiring university environment, between the student demand for global education. So of course, they have realized that for their own approach, definitely it's a kind of inspiring factor, but they established also the link to the motivation of the university lecturers. So all these factors have an impact, and we can go on. Impact of globally relevant events, supportive state and university level legal environment, and of course, receptiveness of university leadership. All these factors have impact on the motivation of university lecturers. And of course, these are just the university lecturers. If we talk about teachers of public education working in schools, either primary or above, of course, there are other factors as well contributing to their motivation. So that's why basically participants kind of draw the conclusion that you cannot say that only one or two factors, they have an implication or impact on the motivation of any actor within the system, but you have to look at it in a systemic way. And in that sense, you might have good, windows of opportunities to influence. But of course, you have to decide the kind of steps strategically, how to approach the question. So that's it from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Rika. And now let's move on to our next session, in which you will meet the representatives of several international organizations or networks, and you can learn about their work, their recent work, and the mission as well. Firstly, I would ask Miguel Silva to come and introduce the North-South Center of the Council of Europe shortly. Rika, we are still, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ildi, for this introduction, and good morning to all our friends, active friends from the Visegrad countries and beyond. And good morning also to all the peers that joined this conference, and all the long journey friends that have been working with the North-South Center. I will focus, actually, due to the topic of the conference. I will privilege, actually, the capacity dimension of the North-South Center of the Council of Europe, which is one of the central pillars beside, advocacy and awareness raising. And most of you are already familiar with the tools that we have been promoting to support the pedagogical development of formal and non-formal educators. But maybe I will introduce also the new tools that we have been introducing recently for the past 2 years to reinforce the sharing of global education concept methodologies, and also sharing the self-assessment for educators in the field of global education, which is also a strong element. And for this, actually, we have revised the main tool of the North-South Center, the Global Education Guidelines, which is now a more practical tool that really underlines also the methodological approaches of global education, so that to help educators to develop global education activities and awareness raising actions in their working settings. This revised version actually also integrates the Council of Europe reference framework on competences for democratic culture. So it's I would say it's a reformulated tool which acts now as one of the founding resources for our other capacity building tools. And last year we have introduced this global education MOOC to allow access to global education concepts and methodological approach to a greater number of audience. And this MOOC has been reinforced also with a series of online tutored courses, thematic online tutored courses, and we have introduced this year the online tutored course for youth multipliers, and which will be followed by global education and media. And the idea is to continue developing this set of online tutor courses on different themes, and we will introduce at a later stage also intercultural dialogue and interfaith dialogue and climate action. So so this is for the online setting, because actually due to the pandemic situation, it was a way also of countering the fact that our residential training courses could not happen, and which led us to reinforce this online dimension. Hopefully, as from next summer, we will be able to resume our residential training courses on global education, and we will start to relaunch these courses in the framework of the universities on youth and global citizenship that will resume as from July with this international university that most of you, or a lot of you, know already, Molina University, and which will be followed also by this Euro-African University and the Mediterranean University. So this is for the capacity building scheme of the North-South Center. And in complement to the global education guidelines, we have also this media literacy toolkit, which actually functions as a complement to the guidelines, and which will be make available online in the coming weeks. And we have also this Global Education Week toolkit, which supports actors, practitioners who wish to develop awareness raising activities in the framework of the Global Education Week, but beyond also this annual campaign. Having said that, there is an important element, which is the advocacy dimension. I mean, we need to also reinforce the recognition of global education. And this morning, in the first part of this conference, we were speaking about this, how important this multi-stakeholder approach is, involving practitioners and institutional representatives to advocate for global education and to advocate for the introduction of global education in the formal system. And so, so, as being part of the Council of Europe, this is also one of our main objectives. Actually, is to bridge, all these actors, and through our regional and national seminars, but also expert meetings that we have been organizing during the pandemic context. And also through the organization of these pan-European congresses, and for this, most of you are now aware that we are in the process of organizing this Global Education Congress in the end of May, 31st of May, 1st of June, and which topic will be actually, which focus will be the professional development of educators. And here there is a strong link between this initiative and the topic of the Congress, and without any doubt, the results of this survey will be very valuable also to delineate the Congress outlines and priority questions. Having said that, we have also introduced this granting mechanism to support advocacy actions, and which this project actually is part of, and is a way also of reinforcing the role of different stakeholders in the advocacy mechanisms for the promotion of global education. And last but not least, we relay actually through all these meetings, multi-stakeholder meetings, through the recommendation of these meetings. It's we relay the main outcomes of such meetings through the Council of Europe Education Steering Committee. So it's a way of keeping also the representatives of your respective countries aware of the work that is being developed in the field of global education and advocacy, and reinforce also the communication between institutional representatives and practitioners in respective Council of Europe member states. And this is it. Maybe just to close my intervention with the Global Education Congress, which will happen at the end of May. This Congress will be also a way not only to assess the work which has been developed for the last 3 years in the field of professional development of educators, but also to already delineate priority actions, priority access for the next cycle of 4 years beyond 2022. And here we are happy also to collaborate with Jean in this celebration of Maastricht Declaration, of this reference declaration, which has guided us for the past 20 years now for the promotion of global education. And so here we are, and I think a lot of advancement took place thanks to this. But as you all know, education is a never-ending process, and I think the education is also the guarantee of keeping democracy alive. And unfortunately, democracy is also not a granted gift. It has to be nurtured, and we see how recent events now in Europe prove that democracy is a fragile asset, and that we all have to contribute to safeguard these democratic values. So I will end here my presentation, and I will be happy also to answer any questions, and glad to share this session with Dita and Douglas, old friends in this global education journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Actually, we are having a question and answer session after all the presentations. So if you have questions, please keep them, and we will come back to them later. Now, I would like to invite to have his presentation, Professor Douglas Byrne, who is the chair of Academic Network on Global Education and Learning.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm troubled myself seeing it at the moment, but hopefully I can. It is okay. So okay, so right. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak this morning. Yes, and as Miguel said, a lot of old friends involved in this. I'm very happy to be here this morning. I'm Professor Douglas Byrne. I'm chair of the ANGEL Network, which is the academic network of global education and learning academics around the world, which was established 5 years ago. And so a little bit about the network, but I want to put that in a broader context. I want to start by saying that it's important that global education develop primary activities, initiatives of civil society organizations. And that an ongoing challenge has been to demonstrate evidence of impact and the contribution to learning in general. So in a sense, as we know that lots of our activities have come from civil society organizations, what often hasn't happened is the engagement of researchers and academics to look at what's been that broader contribution of activity to wide areas of learning. And up until quite recently, it was generally the contribution of individual academics who were involved in this field rather than any sense of community of researchers. What happened in the past decade is the emergence of a community of researchers in this field of global education and learning. I want to say a little bit about what my own journey to this. I established the Development Education Association in the UK in 1993 and ran that organization to 2006. But increasingly in my latter years of running that organization, I was finding that a major challenge was to demonstrate, particularly both to policymakers and the broader educational world, what was the value of our contribution? What evidence do we have that our contribution to education was having an impact, was improving young people's understanding of global and development issues, and it was making a contribution to social change. So I was increasingly finding myself frustrated that I wasn't able to provide the evidence. So in 2006, I left this association, and at the Institute of Education in London, I set up the Development Education Research Centre, which initially had funding from UK government, and felt there was a need not just to provide evidence, but to develop a theoretical basis of the area of work and to demonstrate learning. And from that area, in 2006, we started to develop a community of researchers. And what has happened over the past decade is now the sense in which this field has become widely respected and valued internationally. So you can see here on this graph, over the past decade, the growth in interest in academic publications. This is primarily publications in English language, and obviously there'll be a whole range of other publications in other languages. but it shows the extent to which this field has now become much more part of mainstream educational debates. So you can find in a range of initiatives within higher education, ongoing references to things like global citizenship, education for sustainable development, and global learning in its broader context. So I wouldn't say a sense of where they're at the heart of areas of learning, but there's a sense in which there's been considerable movement in that area. And we're now talking about global education learning being recognized as almost a distinctive academic educational field. And that then led us to think about how can we develop and bring all this activity together. And with the help and support from GEAN, Global Education Network Europe, and initially funding from GEAN, we established the Academic Network of Global Education and Learning in 2017, with the aim to actually start to develop initially a relatively informal network of academics and researchers around the world. And that's been a great success. And we now have over 750 members, including what are called full academic researchers, early career researchers, and associates. And one of the things I think is important about this network is open to all of us involved in this conference today. You can all join. It's free. It's a way of connecting to people who are doing similar work or have similar interests to yourselves. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to do, which is keep it relatively informal to provide a way of people putting in contact with each other. So one of the things that we have therefore done is we developed a range of activities that bring these things together. So we have a website, which includes a database of all the contacts there are around the world. Important thing about Angel, it is not just a European network, it's a global network. So we have academics and researchers from all the continents of the world and an increasingly number of leading academics and researchers from the global south. We produce a newsletter, we organize termly seminars. Our next seminar is with Professor Vanessa Andriotti in May, and every 2 years we hold a big international conference. The last one we had last year was obviously online. Our next one is in 2023, which will be held in Paris in partnership with UNESCO. So there's a sense in which we are now starting to grow as an international network of researchers in this field. And in between those 2 years, we have event for what we're calling early career researchers, often doctoral students or people engaging in this field of academic research at a very early stage. And that's been quite important because we feel that for our field to have any long-term value and impact, that we need to nurture and develop a strong network of early career researchers. And so we're having an early career researcher summer school this summer in June at the University of Bologna in Italy, which is open to people who are currently doing either doctoral level research or master's level activities, or people who are interested in engaging in early career research development. We're also within the network developing a series of special interest groups to people who are interested in developing this field of activity in particular themes. And we currently have one on teacher education, which is pretty relevant to the themes of this conference. And one of the important things about the teacher education special interest group has been, again, the way in which it can share what people are doing in different countries and regions around the world. And a feature of that work so far has really been to identify some really excellent initiatives that are taking place in a number of countries, how we can encourage and inspire people. And it partly relates to one of the questions in the chat, which is how do you engage people in all these areas? And I think there's a sense that we need to demonstrate models of good practice that can inspire others to share what they're doing. And finally, we're now a member of the DEAR Multi-Stakeholder Forum, and the sense in which we're seeing as a contribution to activities and events in Europe. And we're working closely with GEAN on a number of initiatives. We're working closely at the moment on the revision of the Maastricht Declaration. And one of the things we're seeing as a network is how we can have and impact and the contribution in a range of events, both at a international level, but also at a national level. We had a major sort of symposium at the European Education Research Conference last year. And one of the things that we're interested in is how we can, as a network, support capacity building of communities of researchers at a national level or a regional level. So there've been some activities already bringing together researchers from Latin America and from East Asia. And we're also starting to look at, within a European context, if there's particular interest within particular countries of bringing together academics, researchers, whether Angel can play a role in helping to do that. So we'll be very interested in how we can help to do that. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Okay, and the third presenters is the representative of GEAN, the Global Education Network Europe. She's Ditta Trindad. So please, Ditta, come and have your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just get the presentation here. The visual support, and as you probably are guessing, I'll be talking about the process of the new declaration on global education towards 2050. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Hello, Miguel. Hello, Professor Doug. It's a great honor to talk next to you. Some of you may have heard already about this process, about the details of the declaration process, and I apologize for the repetition. But for those of you who haven't, as Miguel mentioned, we are celebrating the 20 years of the Maastricht Declaration on Global Education, and this was a long process of preparing it, and now 20 years later, we decided that there may be a time for a new declaration. And while I'm not going to go into the very specific points that are mentioned here, I think also the very recent events in that question the notion of peace in Europe will even highlight some new dimension of a global education that are almost getting to the edge of the attention, at least in Europe, around how to understand conflicts, peace education, and conflict transformation. So while the Maastricht Declaration had a long-term vision and it was proven useful, we hope this new declaration on global education will also have a longer vision towards 2050. We thought it may be a good idea to go beyond the Agenda 2030 while recognizing the importance of SDGs, at the same time recognizing that maybe not all of them will be achieved by 2030, so ensuring also continuity and strengthening of these processes aligned with others. So where we are now, the whole process started sometime in April last year, and it was officially launched at the anniversary of GEAN in June last year. And since then, we have been hearing a growing support from ministries and agencies in Europe. Some of them are also present in this virtual room, and we are grateful for the support. The new European Declaration it's a process that will go until the beginning of November of this year, and we hope to have a part of it a new declaration with a renewed definition. And as Professor Born has said, we are cooperating on the definition and on the key themes also with Angel. And we hope that, similar to the Maastricht Declaration, it will have also some new elements. So just a quick look back of what came of the Maastricht Declaration and what emerged in the past 20 years. So one of the things is the common policy language, where global education has been used as an umbrella term, bringing all the different strands and themes under its umbrella and working against the siloization of the different streams in education towards social change. We have also saw in the past 20 years an increase interministerial cooperation on global education and multi-stakeholder dialogue, leading to better coordination at national level, but also internationally, and more national strategies were built on global education specifically, and or on related themes such as the education for sustainable development, education for global citizenship, as part also of the SDG agenda, but aligned with global education policies, often in terms of its content. We have also seen increased funding at the national level, global education, and in a way, surprisingly, also during the pandemic, there were more countries increasing their budget, thankfully, than making cuts, recognizing the importance of education in these times. Again, importance of the integration of global education into all spheres of the learning, whether it's a curricular, teacher, and as Miguel said, professional development of educators, whether informal and non-formal learning, research, and also youth work. One thing that Maastricht Declaration brought as a kind of a test were the peer reviews, the national peer reviews on global education, and we saw that it's a useful learning mechanism in global education in many European countries. So far, they have been done 14, and we hope to have another one soon. And finally, the discourse on what is quality global education has been deepened. Also, there have been a great discussion about how to evaluate and assess global education beyond the traditional models that are not often suitable for global education evaluation. And there is a growing knowledge on this as well. So we are having in GEAN, in cooperation with the different actors, various consultations. I mentioned already the international organizations and our cooperation with the North-South Center, as well as other departments of the Council of Europe, in particular the youth, but also the democratic citizenship, the EC, the OECD, the UNESCO, who is also launching the process of the 1974 recommendation on human rights education and intercultural learning, and we hope to develop synergies with the UNESCO process. UNICE, with their work on the interministerial conference in October this year that looks at education for sustainable development and environmental education. I'm sorry, I hope you cannot hear the drilling in the background here. And this UNICE conference will bring ministers of education and ministers of environment, which are not often part of our network in GEAN, but we are very happy to enter in dialogue with them and align our strategies and the declaration. So at the moment, we are running 4 parallel kind of consultation streams with the key stakeholders, the civil society organizations, and many of you are part of this group, the local and regional governments led under the Platforma, and youth, where with the cooperation of the European Youth Forum, we are involving national youth councils and international European youth organizations in consultation. This Friday, we are going to have a first kind of a meeting between these 3 actors in Brussels and in a hybrid way. So I'll leave my email for those of you who would like to participate virtually in any of these consultations. We'll be happy to have you. The whole process is led mainly by policymakers, which are the ministries and agencies in GEAN, who will be negotiating the text of the declaration. And there will be a drafting committee composed of the ministries and agencies. We hope that this declaration will be endorsed at the highest level possible, at the ministerial level, in the ministers. And I have the pleasure to announce that the final Congress will take place at the Dublin Causal in Ireland. Ireland is the hosting country, and we're delighted to have them also chairing the drafting committee, which will be co-chaired with the Luxembourg ministry and agency. The drafting committee is just being formed, so I'm not going to mention all the other countries that are already confirmed, but it's a process in development. And I would also like to say that because of the venue, the dates have changed a little bit. So the Congress will take place at the Dublin Castle on the 3rd and 4th of November, which doesn't coincide with the COP, nor with the Czech presidency events. So we hope that you will all be able to make it there. We are also creating a group of global critical friends, which are experts in global education from outside of Europe. This group did not start to work yet. So if you have any ideas of who should be on this group, please send them on to me. We will be delighted to consider it. And yes, Professor Doug has already mentioned the work of researchers that will look at the definition and so on in cooperation under the leadership of Angel. So what are the working groups doing? They're making suggestions and bringing inputs towards the new European Declaration. We are consulting the vision of global education towards 2050. And we hope to engage them towards the process and the Congress in November. And in some countries, there is also a national consultation process and national dialogue among the different stakeholders taking place. So maybe check in your country whether the ministry is leading such a dialogue. I don't know how much time I have, but just very briefly.
You have 2 minutes left.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we are starting basically the consultations from a blank page. We just have these kind of different sections of the declaration with some questions. And we are gathering basically inputs in the different stakeholders groups under these headings. And we hope that we will be able to bring the inputs together this Friday in Brussels among the key stakeholders, and then take it from there. We hope to have the first draft ready sometime in June, where we will have a virtual consultation on the first draft. So at the moment between March and June, it's the drafting time where we are gathering inputs and building the draft, the first draft. And we hope to have a physical prepcom in the middle of September. The venue is not yet confirmed, nor the dates, but it should be around 14, 15 of September. And then on the 3rd and 4th of November, we would have the final Congress. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Yes, thank you very much, Dita. And now I think you can also check your chat box, because there were several pieces of information which are really important to receive and know. We copied them to the Miro board as well, so you will have it later. But these are such contacts and information that can be useful. And now it's time for questions and answers. So if you have some, you can raise your hand. We have 8 minutes for it, I would say, because we need to start the workshops also in time. So because someone already had a raised hand after Miga's introduction. Now you can just come with the question. No questions or comments? Okay. Actually, you can contact directly our colleagues afterwards as well, and you can question, raise your question directly as well. Thank you very much for the presentations and for all the information you shared. It's really useful, I think, to know about these organizations and networks work, and also these processes that you have just mentioned. It's really something that all we should know about how it's going. And now, then I would say that we should start the workshops. Actually, for the workshops, as you realized from my emails, there was a slight change because we had to reconsider all the topics and also the number of possible participants. Okay, I think everyone could come back. All the workshops finished. I'm so sorry from those who had difficulties to entering workshops at the beginning. I hope finally everyone got into the place where he or she wanted to get. And now, as we have a few minutes left, it's just a short summary what we need to have from each facilitator from the workshops, just to share the main ideas, the main findings or main thoughts that you exchanged, what you want to bring into the whole audience. So who wants to start?
I can.
Thank you, Monica.
Sure, thank you. So our workshop was discovering a bit one specific competence framework, which is meant as an educator competence framework for ESD.
I'm sorry, can you please speak up a little bit? Because it's...
Yeah. Yes,
thank you.
I'm bringing it closer, and yes.
Yeah.
So it was about one specific competence framework for educators in ESD, and it was called a rounder sense of purpose. And it's a competence model which was linked with research, and which also resulted in a set of practices that we collected along competence areas and also along SDGs. So we got a glimpse into this model, and also we discussed which parts of the model we feel important, how relevant they are to us, what different research and practical findings or experiences bring us as missing ones, important ones to mind. And also we try to critically reflect on the relevance of those frameworks at all. In brief, that was that.
Perfect. Sounds well. Thank you. Who wants to continue? Bori, maybe?
Hi, everyone. Yes, so I'll just share my screen very quickly. So what we had a look at was lots of ways of how to implement a 4-step process that the Jane Goodall Institute, the Worldwide Jane Goodall Institute, has kind of come up with a 4-step methodology. Let me find it. And we kind of went through the 4 steps and how communities, organizations, schools could get involved. And for each step, we looked at examples of what from around the world. And also then we kind of made a few little notes about what others have experienced or what others have had ideas for, which could fall into this process as well. That's
Thank you. And we are going to have these boards as well, so we can share it with the others afterwards. Okay, thank you. Rika or Zsuzsa?
I can continue. My voice profoundly deteriorated during the last half an hour, but I'm trying to do that. I also try to share my screen. Basically, what we looked at during the session was how in the higher education institutions in themselves, like a whole institution approach, or at the level of education policy, and this is state level or government level decision making, you can approach the integration of global education or education for sustainable development in teacher training. And so I have also reiterated some best practices, and since it's on the Miro board of which the link was sent to the whole conference, you can find there, and anyway the link will be shared with you afterwards as well, so you can check them out if you're interested in particular examples of good approaches or best practices. What the participants have brought to the table, that was an example from Italy, and basically the kind of lesson learned there, or the takeaway for me, was that a kind of multi-stakeholder approach towards developing a strategical, linear steps towards realizing your objective is basically a must. Of course, later political development can have a kind of counter effect on the strategy, as it happened in Italy as well. But still, the process itself, this multi-stakeholder process, built the trust between actors. And of course, there were some other smaller scale kind of results of the process, guidelines, regional law. A white book was developed based on that. From Portugal, what I have learned from the example, that this type of bottom-up approach can work as well. The initiative which was introduced was started with only 7 teachers, and they were building step by step from there. And now it's absolutely a kind of more widespread initiative already. So in that sense, I think it's always encouraging to see such kind of examples, that it's not always that we have to wait for the university leadership and for the decision makers to take the first steps. From Romania, we could see that the Global Education Week, which is the initiative of the North-South Center, it's a quite successful initiative, and bring together the practitioners and then absolutely raise their awareness. From Finland, what we could see that in universities, it's very much well advanced situation in the sense that education for sustainable development, or the topic of sustainability, it's almost in every university and every course. It's kind of integrated, of course, to some degree or not. It's always individual and depending on the context of the individual university, but at the same time they have a much general approach at the level of the universities. So in that sense, I think quite many good or best practices can be identified in Finnish universities. So that's from our side.
Thank you, Rika. And finally, Zsuzsa from workshop 2 about the best practices.
Thank you. I'd like to share my screen too.
Oops, that I need to stop sharing.
All right. I hope you can see it right now. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we did, it was a team up exercise that was a little bit of mix of networking session and a partnership building session. How it comes here, I cannot relate to what Reka said, and we heard that previously during this morning, the importance of bottom-up initiatives and the multi-stakeholder and international partnerships and their force, their power to make a change. So that was the idea, and I shared example of Erasmus Plus project that was a K2 strategic partnership to give an example how it could look like. And some of the participants have already had some experiences in that. And we went through actually an imaginary situation. If we as a team right now in the room 2, we wanted to build a partnership, how would that look like? How would that relate to global education and teacher training? So the 3 main questions were what a person or an organization could bring to a partnership. And here we can see on the left-hand side of my screen, very nice ideas of like subject-based approach and 16 years of global education experience. I think that these are really things that would matter in building a great partnership. And we got quite long answer from NHS CE Web that the organization had a big partnership and membership from Eastern and Central Europe. That would be very important in the dissemination of the project results. The second question was, I have a project idea, so maybe some of the participants came already with ready project ideas, and it came up like whole world for global education. And the other was more about ecological corridors, so that's more touching the biodiversity and climate change and sustainable development and sustainability topics of global education. So that could be some of the next projects that someone could relate to. So I really encourage all the participants here, if you feel like inspired by this idea. So let's keep in touch, keep in contact, and figure out how we or some of the participants and organizations can build a next partnership. The third question was that maybe the lack of expertise or lack of competence or skills, whatever we feel like, okay, maybe we are a bit shy to join a partnership, but I'm really keen on learning something about project-based education or philosophy for children, or my organization would really is eager to learn how to teach digital education or how to give better lessons in nature education or pedagogy. Also, a very important topic came up, that the cooperation between the global north and global south countries, that would give a great insight into the organization's work, and also in something important that nowadays we have to deal with. And also, I think it's a great thing that it's on the table. So I stop sharing, and thank you very much for the attention and all the participants. I give back the floor to Eli.
Thank you, Zsuzsa. Well, it sounds great. All the workshops must have been very inspiring and useful. And I hope that the whole conference you found interesting and it was useful, and you could learn from the presentations and from the workshops as well. And it's provided a good opportunity to share expertise and experiences, and also for networking. We wanted to facilitate this one as well, with also with the introduction of organizations and also with these workshops. So I'm just quickly closing, because because we are a bit late with our time. We have to finish, but I would like to tell you that or confirm again that we are sending all the materials what you have seen today. We are going to share it, and also the link for the recording, and also the research report summaries, so you can learn more about the research as well, what we presented. So thanks for being here with us. If you have any comments or questions later, you can contact us, and we are also contacting you with a feedback sheet. So we would be happy if you could fill that and give a reflection and respond on the whole event. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, and bye.